Moving from intellect to virtue requires an intellectual and emotional adjustment because reason tells us to pursue comfort and ease when our better angels know that life includes suffering. In fact, much of life is suffering. Not only that sorrow which is our own, but the anguish we experience when those we love suffer, and, on a larger scale, when human beings anywhere on any part of this earth suffer unthinkable horrors. So what do humans do to bear up under the burden of suffering? How do we manage to function in a world where daily the unimaginable assaults our conscience and our consciousness? In our last section on intellect, we looked at 4 authors who, in the midst of a personal suffering and a suffering world, made meaningful choices and observations. Through their work, it is clear that nobility of purpose can be set against the most sinister malevolence and permit human beings to survive, even thrive, amidst the horrors of prison camps, starvation, and evils only human minds can contrive. From their work, we can see that life is difficult and dangerous, and each of us must be a formidable force to negotiate and navigate through the midst of what may seem like hell on earth. Life is hard on the naive, weak, and harmless. Life is better for the dangerous. What? Seriously? My world-lit teacher is telling me to be dangerous? Yes, I am. I am also going to tell you the weapon that will make you a daring, heroic, and perpetual survivor in a ruthless world. Virtue. Be armed with virtue to war against suffering, and equally important, be armed with virtue to keep yourself from causing others to suffer. And how do I do virtue? What does that mean? I hear you, and I'll try to tell you. And I think the works we read in this section will help explain the idea far better than I. The essence of virtue is to pursue what is meaningful. You say, meaning is different for everyone. Okay. You can pretend there's no meaning, and you can criticize the idea of meaning, and you can argue that meaning is a creative construct. I say try to live without it, and what do you get? Watch what happens. To survive a hostile, hateful world, the loving intellectual person will encapsulate herself or himself in some kind of tangible, meaningful place so that there is something to sustain through adversity. Okay, you say, I'll play along. How then do I gain virtue? I'm glad you asked. In life, we live in the reality of what is and the reality of what can be. You are going to school, suffering through this world lit class because you believe that there's a promise and a reward for future you. You sacrifice time with your friends because the deadline for quizzes and posting is near. You read and reread difficult works because you have no one to tell you what to believe, so you have to decide what these works mean and create a sound college-level synthesis from your reading. You pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. You are responsible. The way to virtue and meaning is discovered on the road called responsibility. You have rights. Of course you have rights. You need a night off. Of course you need a night off. This class and all your classes make you unhappy. Well, of course the classes make you unhappy. However, responsibility is where you find meaning, not in happiness and not in impulsive pleasures. Adopt responsibility for your own well-being, keep your family together, and serve your community. This assertive posture will make you dangerous, a formidable foe against the torments of life. Accept the burden of your own life, and you will transcend suffering. This truth is what our stories in this section will address. In Jean-Baptiste Poquelin's Molière's Tartuffe, a family reveals the utter foolishness of virtuous pretense. In Leo Tolstoy's God Sees the Truth But Waits, Ivan Dmitrievich Aksionov is betrayed by a stranger and abandoned by his family, but discovers a transcendent truth in a Russian prison camp. In Gabriel Garcia Marquez's A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings, a chicken angel man shows up to Pelayo and Elisynda's home in the middle of a monsoon, and their lives, not necessarily their characters, are changed forever. These 17th, 19th, and 20th century stories give us insight into the suffering and trials inflicted by others and inflicted by self. and they offer us a view toward redemption from the tragedies of life. They remind us that under difficult circumstances, there are ways to be noble.